When someone says employee stock options, what they are actually being offered? Is it the real ownership or just the permission to buy shares with your own salary? If the company succeeds, who gets the money first? Founders, investors, employees? Welcome back to the new episode of Let's Make It Clear podcast. Today we are talking about employee stock option. 3 words everyone pretends to understand. Do I really need a Delaware flip to make employee stock options work? Why does the same employee stock option means an upside in one country and a tax trap in another? Let's make one more topic clear. When you offer stock options, do you actually know what are you promising? For employees, am I getting stock for free over time, or am I supposed to pay for it with my own salary? What happens when I have stocks but company isn't public yet? Do I just put them on shelf and wait? No one reads the long agreements with all the rules, unfortunately. Let's start with killing the myth. If you're a European startup and you wanna issue stock options, you need to do a Delaware flip. That used to be common, but is it actually needed? Let me explain the complex topic in simple terms to you. Like you never heard the words like vesting, cliff, ESOP, VSOP, RSU, and much more. But let's start with foundation. Why founders create employee stock options at the first place? It's a good tool to attract, retain, and motivate a top talent to join your company and stay longer by offering them a part of your company in return. Also share the success for the work that they put it into the company. And this is where Europe historically is a bit behind. Somehow it's less common for European companies to offer stock options because in order to raise capital, US investors or US accelerators would demand from you opening either a US company or doing a Delaware flip. But that's not a requirement to issue stock options. Before we go into the jungle of business words, let's start with demystifying 5 keywords that you will hear a lot on this topic. Starting with cap table. Cap table is basically a document which describes who owns which part of the company. It describes ownership. Founder owns 80%, investor owns 10%, and employees pool also 10%. Important to understand when you hear share options, it's not the same as shares. It's just simply an opportunity for employee to buy the shares. Shares are not given for free in this case. Vesting, the most common term, is a period over which the amount of shares that was given to you upon signing the contract will be distributed. Strike price plus spread. Strike price, you can think about it like internal price by which employer is offering you to buy the shares of the company. Well, the spread is the difference between the price when company goes to IPO and the price for which you bought the shares, the internal price. Dilution. It happens with every round of fundraising. You need to know it will go down over time. There's no way to avoid that. Okay, real cap table example. Founders own 80%, investors 5%, and dedicated option pool for employees 15%. After a few fundraising rounds, you hired key people, your company grows in valuation, you used your 15% employees pool. That will result in founders having less ownership of the company over time, but it's important to note that it will be of a much bigger pie, partially due to the top talents that they hired during the growth stages and that helped to accelerate the company growth. Now founders, instead of owning 80% from 1 million, they own 60% from 10 million, which is completely different amount at the end. That would be like 800k versus 6 millions, you know. So let's be positive. Dilution is not scary if you know how to use it right. But the key point here is that while your ownership percentage of the company might decrease over time, you will still own the same amount of stocks. So don't worry, no one takes money from you. Now, big words, zero understanding. 3 terms that we will go through. It's ESOP, VSOP, and RSU. 3 tools, 3 very different trade-offs. I'm getting hot in here. Let's have some fun. This beat is sick. Disgusting. ESOP is the real ownership. It's most probably what you think about equity. It's like when you're giving part of your company to someone else. It doesn't mean necessary that you give the full ownership. It's just that you give some stakes of the company to another person. ESOP is just an option to buy actual shares. Company issues shares and employees can choose either to buy them or not. That's called option shares. Company issues option shares. And that's not the shares that are just given to you. It's an opportunity to buy a share of the company. And then you decide whether you want to buy it or you don't want to buy it, but opportunity is there. The moment when you decide to buy those options, called exercise. When you're exercising your options, you become the shareholder of the company. You appear on the cap table, you have real company ownership, and sometimes even voting rights. Then we have a second type, VSOP. They also called phantom or virtual equity, and honestly it's the first time when I actually heard this term. I never heard about it before. But as everything what touches equity, you don't know much about it unless you experience it in your life. So that's normal. VSOP. You never have the actual ownership of the company, but instead you're offered to get paid as if you had a slice. There is no real shares issued, no cap table entry. You never become owner even for 1%. It's simply a promise to pay cash on the exit of the company. For me, it was quite interesting how it actually being executed because I heard about it for the first time, so I was super confused. But the thing that happens, you basically sign a contract of some kind, and then when the moment company goes to exit, that would be IPO, merge, acquisition, when company got amount of cash in a bank account, it's being distributed to all of the owners. First, investors with preferred liquidity are getting their part on the returns. It's agreement they make in the beginning stating that my initial investments must be returned first, and then whatever on top, we are splitting. So this is the first phase. Then the second phase, when they are splitting with founders and other investors profits. Here they also have usually some agreement. Let's say 10% goes to employees. Even though they don't hold real shares of the company and they don't have the ownership, there is agreement in case of a successful exit of a company. And here, everything goes by percentage. If you're employee on the other side, you simply would get paid like if you bought and sold stocks in the same moment, but it would come to you as a cash bonus. That's it, pretty much. You don't need to care about it. Everything is done for you. At some point, if it's successful, you get the money. The last type, RSU. I call them free shares. You get free shares if you stick around long enough. You don't need to buy anything, shares are given to you. Usually have the same setup, 1 year cliff and 4-year vesting period. With one little but important detail, they can be taxed on the moment when they are vested. Meaning, yes, you are getting shares for free, but you also need to pay taxes for them while you have no return on them. So you're paying out of your pocket before you get any profits out of it. That was quite surprising for me because, well, okay, they are gifted to me, but I'm paying tax on them. Well, interesting, but okay, good to know at least. And obviously that's bad if you get them from a private company, meaning you get them, you pay taxes, but you're not able to sell them. It's much safer if it's tied to exit or IPO. Yes, you get the shares, but you also get the chance to earn profits. So you're not paying dry cash. You don't need to urgently find funds on the potential of a stock. Whew, hard topic is over. Now we're gonna build on top of it. Many EU startups actually prefer virtual equity. But why European founders would prefer virtual equity? Why would they prefer paying real cash later instead of giving a cheap equity early? Well, the answer is boring, typical, and full of buzzwords. Virtual shares are paid only upon success. Employees get a slice of a successful exit, while founders don't spend time and nerves on figuring accounting management. Because once you get to the exit point, cash is not the problem. But if you're interested in specifics, I will give you specifics. Why founders love it? It's usually taxed only on the payout moment. There are no exercise costs. Obviously, there is less admin work because you don't need to issue shares. They don't get voting rights, no dividends, clean cap table, which is easy to manage. Both founders and investors agree in advance to set aside a portion of the exit reward to this virtual employees pool. And what matters for the founders the most, there is no actual equity dilution. Because employee pool is virtual, it's not on the cap table. So whatever you raise from the next funding rounds, your percentage of the company ownership as a founder is not decreasing as much because you're sharing it, for example, only with investors. And for founder, it might be actually important to have the last voice on the decisions within the company. That's often tied to the ownership percentage. And the last point, virtual shares is easy to explain internally. In general, I think avoiding confusion is good. What would be the downside for founders here? It usually requires a cash at the exit, and there is no separate virtual employees pool. You need to agree on that with your investors in advance. Always keep in mind that once you succeed, there is a share that you need to give to your employees. But why not to just give equity? Why should I issue virtual stocks for them? Well, founders issue virtual equity if they want a full control of the cap table. Founders choose ESOP, which is the real ownership of the company, when their talent expects real equity and they can handle tax complexity. But don't worry, everything is possible, and many founders start with VSOP and then convert it to ESOP. Let's wrap it up because I know it's a lot. It's a lot on your head. It's a lot on my head too. VSOP pays only if there is a success. There is zero dilution during growth and funding rounds. No headache on fundraising math. If equity given early, it's gone forever. Dilutes founders and future rounds, participants, and compounds over time. And here I honestly was like, okay, compounds over time. What is that? The example would be you give 10% to early employees now. Later, an investor comes and says, I want a 25% post money, not diluted by the team. Let me translate that to you. Investor comes and asks that he wants 25% of the new valuation. So it's your current valuation plus the amount that you're raising. And he also asks you to don't dilute employees because the 10% for employees must be fixed all the time to motivate top talent hiring. So now your founder share getting diluted more than you might have expected. Not only by investor joining, but also to maintain the employee pool. So you as a founder get diluted the most and your ownership of the company goes down because you had an agreement of not decreasing the 10% for employees. fundraising is a big topic. Maybe you would cover it in a separate episode. But now, here's a big update. Europe changes their laws for better in the last 2-3 years. Several EU countries moved toward deferring taxation until a liquidity event. Again, smart words, let me translate it to you. In many countries, there is now a law that allows you to postpone paying taxes until the moment when you sell them. Because previously, when we are talking about ESOP, it does not apply for RSU or VSOP, but in ESOP, you pay tax not only at the point when you're selling the shares, but actually at the exercise of the share options, meaning when you're buying them at the first place, which isn't the best situation because it's dry cash. You pay taxes on something that you have no profits yet. And basically, the government in many EU countries tries to remove tax at exercise with no cash problem. For example, in Czech Republic, a reform in 2024 postpones tax triggering event. Basically, it means that there is no tax at exercise. Obviously, you need to meet a certain conditions. One of those, it should be a Czech company that issues the equity. Then we have Baltics, especially Estonia, which are more founder friendly and offer taxing at sale if you hold the period. I think it's 3 years for Estonia and Lithuania and a year for Latvia since the grant date. So it's not when they vest it, it's actually the date when you sign a contract on your options. And if you hold them for this period of time, upon sale is the only moment when you pay tax. Germany, similar for Austria, if you meet the startup criteria like company size must be under 1,000 employees, tax is postponed. For Netherlands, a reform is still in motion. They aim towards tax at sale by 2027. Founders versus employees. Why should you even care? Typically, founders acquire shares at the point when it basically has little or no value on the market. And founders are taxed only at the point of sale, usually as capital gain, which is generally lower than income tax rate. For employees, on the other hand, without special schemes, employees might be taxed upon vesting, upon exercise of the stock options, upon sale, and it will be treated as regular income. For employees, it simply means that they caught off guard in the worst time possible. Company is not successful yet, and they're already paying out of their salary pockets when shares are still illiquid. They cannot sell them. They cannot get any gain at this point for this asset. And just a reminder, caring about your employees is a leverage to drive trust with your existing employees, to attract new top talents that would help with company growth and scale, and to improve retention of these top talents in the company. So, what should a founder choose? I have 3 questions for you to ask that will give you a clear answer. Where is your company legally based? If it's France, Estonia, Portugal, Czech Republic, use ESOP and leverage local startup tax schemes here. Germany, Austria, new rules generally support ESOP, but many still use VSOP, the virtual stock, because they are simple. For US or UK, RSU are popular after Series B, but ESOP are the norm early. Second, do you want to see real shareholders on your cap table? If no, go with VSOP. If yes, ESOP or RSU. Are you early stage or post product market fit? Early stage, use ESOP and virtual shares options. If you're late stage or pre-IPO, RSU are useful here. Delaware Flip reality check. A Delaware Flip was often about investor preference, an idea of scaling in the US market, not because equity was impossible in Europe. And the flips get harder once you have many small shareholders on the table. mainly because you need an approval from each of them and it takes time. And startups are usually about speed. That's one of the reasons why founders prefer virtual stocks, because they don't need to run around when they need an approval from all of the shareholders. And what happens if a US parent company issues stocks for employees that are based in Europe? That usually means that the local startup tax scheme doesn't apply here because it most probably will not meet the requirements, and your employees most likely will be taxed at the exercise point of the shares, because at this point their profit is the difference between the strike price and the fair market value, even though stock might not be public yet. Moreover, your employees will be taxed with employee income tax rate and not capital gains. Just a reminder, capital gain tax is much smaller than income tax. If you're looking for tooling to manage all of that mess with cap tables, there are plenty of platforms and tools nowadays that you can use, such as Ledgy, Carta Europe, Seed Legals, Vested. Such tools help to centralize all of the documents, consents, signature of the documents, help with compliance checks, centralize who owns what. It also tracks leaver scenarios. If an employee leaves, platform automatically recalculates how much of their unused options will be vested and how much of them will be cancelled and returned back to the employee pool. Now, let's shift the perspectives. What founders care about, what investors care about, what employees care about. Founders, in perfect case scenario, pre-allocate an employee option pool. It can be from 5 to 20%. Founders must think not, am I losing 3%? Or everyone should get the same equity. Instead, good founder will think, does this hire potentially helps us grow from 100 million to 1 billion valuation? If yes, the potential dilution is fuel for your company growth and not a loss. Give early and critical hires meaningful percentage of company shares. Later hires will get smaller slices because risks will be lower at this point too. Plus, refresh grants need to be issued after 4-year cliff. If you still want to retain your talent, you will be still issuing additional stock options for them. What investors are looking for? Investors are looking for clear and predictable cap table. They don't want to see mess there. They want to see a cap table with clear vesting calculations and no ad hoc grants. Like, hey, I want to issue additional 2% to our new hire just because we got drunk yesterday. Not a good sign for investors. So even if you do that smartly. Investors want to see founders who are still motivated at exit, not mentally checked out at Series B. I'm done. Not interested in growing this company any further. For them, a demotivated founder is much worse than a potential dilution. And no surprise, because if founder is not there driving the whole company further, who cares about dilution if there will be no next fundraising rounds? There will be no success story. Employees, what they care about or what they should be caring about. Strike price, the internal price that they will need to pay for the stock options. Employees should care about when you pay taxes. Is it on option vesting moment? Is it during exercise of the options stage? Is it only upon sale? Hard truth, while equity is nice with a big potential, don't play roulette here. Don't take it as salary replacement. In the beginning of your journey, it doesn't really make sense because if you're offered stock options and you have low salary, your life context is different compared to the leadership person who has life figured out and has stable income for many years and able to afford such options easily. While for you, it might cost you 50% of your salary just to buy those options. And God knows whether it will make a return. So be smart about your risk management. Vesting acceleration on exit. It's a point in your contract that defines what happens to your unvested shares if company performs exit. They either will be vested to you immediately or nothing to them happens. Read the documents that you're signing. The next one was a discovery for me personally. Post-termination exercise window. 4 smart words, 0 understanding. Apparently, there is a condition. Once you, as an employee, you leave a company, you have a given timeline to exercise your options. It's not forever. It might be the case if your post-termination exercise window is like 2 weeks, that if you still want to own shares of the company, you would need to urgently find funds to buy before they expire, while in your personal life, not everything might be so well because you left the company. You're not in the most stable situation right now. Green flags usually are if the post-termination window is from 12 to 36 months. Another option might be exercise anytime before exit or automatic cashless exercise at exit. Many buzzwords, I know, but I looked into it for you. Automatic cashless exercise at exit is basically when you exercise and sell your options in one go. Company went public, and instead of you buying options first and then selling them, you do all at once in one go with one action. The disadvantage of this approach is that you're paying the highest tax possible. ESOP, VSOP, RSU, different tools, different trade-offs. Now you know, equity isn't a gift, it's a leverage. Use it where it multiplies your company value. And let's not forget that Europe offers equity schemes for startups that play to the advantage of founders and employees. And yes, if someone leaves the company and never exercises their stock options, they're being cancelled and granted back to the employee option pool. So this is not the equity that magically disappears. Employee stock options. One more topic made clear today.